Hi guys, in this video, you will learn the names of chess opening and their move order. Let's dive right into it. This is an opening connected to the king's pawn. After pawn to e4, black plays pawn to f5. This is known as the Duras Gambit or Fred Defense. This opening is the French defense. After the move order pawn to e4, we have e6. This is an opening that gives room for white to play this move, trying to control the center. However, black's intention is to delay the push of this move, pawn to d5. This opening is called the Ruy Lopez. After e4, e5, knight goes to f3. Now we have knight to c6. Then bishop to b5 followed. This is the setup for the Ruy Lopez opening. This opening is called the Sicilian. After pawn to e4, black plays c5. This is known as the Sicilian defense. After e4, pawn goes to c6. We have the Caro kann defense. After pawn to e4, black plays e5, knight to f3 attacking the pawn, knight to c6 defending the pawn. After bishop to b5, we have seen this as the Ruy Lopez. However, this time around, if you put the bishop here on c4, we have the Italian game. After e4, c5, if white employs the concept of knight to c3, we have the closed Sicilian. In this position, black can choose to continue with knight to c6 and the game can continue from here. This is called the closed Sicilian. However, there are other variations, but I just want to throw in one more. We have the Alapin variation after pawn to c3. If white goes for pawn to e4 and black plays d5 right away, this introduces the opening known as the Scandinavian defense. Sometimes it is called the center counter defense. It's one of the oldest chess opening. The purpose is to counter the center immediately. Most played response is pawn takes pawn in the center, queen takes the pawn, and the game can continue from here. With pawn to a4, if d6 follows, we have the Peck defense, or most people call it the pass defense. PIRC is a form of hypermodern defense. With pawn to e4, black plays knight to f6. We have the Alekhine defense from this position. Most of the times, white goes aggressive with pawn to e5 right away, which enables black to play a move like this. This is the Alekhine defense. One of the aggressive played opening in the past is the King's Gambit. After this setup move, you have the pawn push to f5 immediately. This is called the King's Gambit. Another aggressive opening is the Scotch game. After pawn to e4, e5 followed, knight to f3, the knight to c6 comes up. Here, white decides to play d4 instantly. This move introduces the Scotch game. You can continue from here as black with different approaches. Most times you see black playing pawn takes pawn immediately. Then you set up the trap connected to Scotch game. White plays the bishop, knight is prepared to come into the game, and there is pressure on f7. With pawn to a4, pawn to e5. Once knight goes over to c3 immediately, we have the Vienna game. Another opening that gave chess recognition around 2020 during COVID-19 period is this opening, the Queen's Gambit. After pawn to d4, d5, the closed d4 variation. Once pawn to c4 comes up, we have the setup for the Queen's Gambit opening. An in-depth variation of the Queen's Gambit is the Slav defense. After pawn to d4, d5. If pawn to c4 right away, most played move is pawn takes pawn. However, black can become defensive with pawn to c6. This gives rise to the Slav defense. Pawn to d4, knight to f6, pawn to c4. With pawn to g6, we have the King's Indian defense. The purpose of this move is to create room for the bishop to come to g7 in the future. King can castle, then white can strike with other pieces he has from the queen side. Another form of defense connected to d4 is the Nimzo-Indian defense. In this case, there is no pawn push, but there is bishop right away to b4. In this position, white need to be careful because knight is coming over very soon to a4 to pressure the knight that is pinned to the king on c3. The Queen Indian defense contains this particular move. After the set of moves, you notice that the last two openings we checked out has almost the same similar setup. However, the first one continued with the pawn moving over to g6. Then the next variation followed by this when the knight was there. Now we have a different setup where you can see pawn push directly down to b6, and this gives rise to Queen's Indian defense. In this opening, we are going to look at the Catalan opening. It contains the setup move d4, knight to f6, then c4 followed. After this move, you see white decides to employ g3 with the purpose of putting the bishop here on this long diagonal. It is possible to put the bishop there, knight follows, king castled, then knight is developed, queen follows into the game. These are the basic plan for white. However, black also has his own plan too. The Bogo-Indian defense contains this set of moves with bishop coming over to b4 to make a check as early as possible. White can defend with the knight, can defend with the bishop. So the purpose of this is to activate the bishop, create room for the king to be castled to safety as early as possible. The Grunfeld defense contains this set of move, fighting for the center as early as move 3. After this pawn push, most played continuation is pawn takes pawn. Most times, black doesn't capture right away. However, black chooses to go this so that I can castle because eventually he will capture this knight. Eventually, he will capture this pawn in the future. The Dutch defense is very straightforward after pawn to f5. There's an attack called the Trompowsky attack. After pawn to d4, knight follows, then bishop comes outside. The Benko Gambit is very similar to what we have seen. However, since white wants to overextend this pawn, black is prepared to cause weakness of this pawn with this beautiful pawn push, pawn to b5. So white needs to be extremely careful. Probably develop the knight and push pawn can be an idea, or pawn takes, knight comes out and solidify the center with the pawn to e4. It's possible. However, you can take this opening and study for your own strength. The London system is very simple. After pawn to d4, we have d5. The bishop goes over to f4 immediately, and we have the London system. However, there's some setup that contains knight moves to f3. If knight comes over to f6, bishop follows. We can have the London system too, like this. The Reti opening just starts right away with knight to f3. Any variation from here is connected to the Reti opening. The English opening is also not far from identification. You can easily see the English opening after pawn to c4. Once a player plays pawn to c4, just know he wants to play the English opening. The bird opening goes on with pawn to f4. The King's India attack starts with knight to f3, d5, then pawn to g3 gives away the King's India attack. The purpose is to open space so that the bishop can come into the game and have strength over this long diagonal. There is a King Fianchetto opening after J3, then you notice that immediately white wants to put the bishop here, bring the knight out, and castle the king. The Nimzowich Larson attack starts with B3, just like the opposite of King Fianchetto opening. There is a Polish opening, and the Polish opening goes with pawn to B4 instantly. Most players fall for the trick connected to this. After playing this move, most of the times players go with bishop to B2. If you capture right away, you lose a pawn and also a rook. The Grob opening went on with pawn to G4. We can't leave out the bishop opening. The bishop opening contains E4. After pawn to E5, then bishop comes over to C4, like a reverse London system. Thank you for watching this video. If you've gotten value for this video, do not forget to subscribe to this channel for more. Like this video and share to your friends. If there's any opening I've not mentioned in this video, do well to drop it in the comment section. See you in the next video.